Hey guys, it's the Beast here, and today I'm excited to show you an in-depth look at my retro gaming closet, or better known as Beast Production Studio. So, with that out of the way, welcome to my humble abode. So, to expand upon my Instagram stories that I recorded while creating this beautiful 5.1 surround sound home theater system in a closet for gaming, I will expand upon it in this in-depth video, and at the end you will see my Instagram stories which will show the timeline of this creation. So, let's begin. So, we have three TVs as you can see here. A 22-inch to your left, a Samsung flat screen 22-inch in fact, a 20-inch SV2000 CRT TV for retro gaming, and to your right here, the Sony Smart TV 24-inch. And all these screens combined will create a fantastic setup because of the outputs and that are available on the back of these televisions. And we also have as mentioned previously, a 5.1 surround sound in this closet, which creates very realistic sound that if you just sit in here and watch a movie all the way through, it sounds like you're in the movie. It is fantastic in such a small space, but you have to be careful because of how it could damage your hearing if you blast the decibels up too loud on the receiver. And before I continue any further, I would let you know as well that I have all of the equipment and everything that is used to create this setup on a Google Doc linked in the description. Now, back to the video. To showcase the speaker setup, we have two front speakers by Fisher. For the center channel, we're using a Mirage center channel. And for the surrounds, we have Kilpsch speakers. And this creates a fantastic sounding environment in this closet. So first, of course, the TVs, which I just discussed. And here's the consoles. We have the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 1, the Sega Genesis, and the Nintendo Switch dock right there. And underneath, we have a Sears Telegames Atari 2600. And I left out Missile Command. I love that game. And over here, right next to the PS3, we have an AV switcher, which is hooked up to these component cables on the CRT. And if I want the audio to go back through these TV speakers for whatever's hooked up to the AV switcher, I have to plug those ends into the output on there for the audio and plug those back in, and I will get the audio through there. But I have it wired up, so of course it goes to the 5.1 surround sound system. I also have a rack here, or stand, for DVDs, or for my case, video games. I have some of my new additions to my collection on this rack, and some of the old ones, of course, that I couldn't fit anywhere else, with that case filled with many other games as well. And underneath me, here's the chair, my guitar, and if you look underneath, we have the controllers and the games. Including, we have the Nintendo Switch in that case right there, the Zelda case, and the PSP in that case right next to it. And here's the console, or the center, where the Sears Telegames equipment and games will be placed. Next, I have this little DIY tissue box where I store all the remotes for the players, TVs, and everything else. And I usually leave out the Pioneer receiver remote. This remote is fantastic, and it's the only way to do every single option and functionality of the Pioneer receiver. Before I discuss how everything functions, I want to also mention the lighting. As you could see, right above me, behind my head, I have a fan with multiple different lighting modes that I control using this remote, including fan speeds. So let's try one out just for the video showcase. There's fan speed 4. I don't know if you could hear that. But the decibels on that are extremely quiet, with also other lighting modes. Take a look. There's 3 different lighting modes. And next, we will discuss the functionality of everything in here and how it works. Before I continue with the video, you may wonder why I'm wearing a different shirt. The reason is that it got too dark last night while filming the last portion of this video. So, with that out of the way, I hope the video looks better now, and back to the video. So you may wonder, how does this room get power? We have a 18 outlet power strip in the back here, which runs outside of the room into the outlet on this wall. Now I will show you how everything is hooked up using this custom guide I made, which I put in this 5-star folder. Here's the original guide, and I will show you what's behind it at the end. This guide explains all the important information you need to know, all the equipment that is used, the arrangement of the TVs and the equipment, how everything is set up, how to switch between each of the sources for sound, a page for other information if I need to add anything, and a message from the Beast. So let's read the first page. This setup is owned by Beast Productions, and this guide booklet is for information purposes only. Any redistribution or copying of this booklet is not permitted unless allowed by the production administrator/owner. Samuel Fadley can be contacted by email at samuelcooldude08@gmail.com or by his social media accounts. Thank you for your understanding and enjoy this theater experience with retro games ranging from the Atari 2600, Sega Genesis, PlayStations 1 to 3, and the Nintendo Game Boy, with an addition of the PSP and also the Nintendo Switch. In addition, enjoy the wide variety of classic to modern day video games on a 5.1 surround sound system in a closet. Please respect the equipment and proceed with caution with how loud the audio in such a small space can be. Rock on, game on, and always remember, have a good day. The Beast and everyone from Beast Productions. And there's all the equipment. This will be listed in the description. Here is the arrangement of all the TVs. I've already went over this. But one thing to take out of this is this: for the Sony TV, there's a ARC connection on the back, which is just an HDMI cord that would run to the ARC connection on the back of the Pioneer receiver. So anything from the Sony TV, any source that's hooked up, the audio will automatically be transferred to the 5.1 surround, which is a simple and sweet setup. Anyways, the setup process, I'm going to go over this. The entire setup took over 3 months to complete, starting from April 6th, 2025 to June 30th, 2025. it was an interesting experience to bring this project to life. Well, first of all, I never thought about having a stereo surround sound setup for gaming. My dad gave me that idea, and we went with it, and it turned out to be fantastic after we were done. We had to buy some wood from a local Home Depot to construct the shelves that will hold the TVs, and beneath them is where the consoles will be. Over the span of the next 3 months, I was thinking this whole setup in such a small space would not work how we expected it to be. But we managed to hook everything up and almost had the right amount of cables, and surprisingly, I'm glad it worked out well, and cable management has been an issue, but we were able to move the power strip behind the TVs and run everything behind it instead of having it under the bottom shelf, which looked very messy. It took some experimenting with where everything should be and how the audio for the consoles would be hooked up, but again, it worked. I spent some time painting those wood shelves throughout the entire day, and we cut them and then installed them, and I was the only one that hooked every single device up. For my first time actually working with stereo equipment, I did a fantastic job with following some tutorials on YouTube. But for a more in-depth view on this closet and how everything came to be, check out my YouTube video, which you guys are watching right now. And here is the most important information in this booklet. This is the sound sources. How to switch between everything. You could take a look at this. I have the AV switcher, which is, let me rotate this, that switcher right under there, right next to the PS3. And then we have the coax switcher, which will just sit up here. There's two switches, one for the Sega Genesis and one for the Atari 2600. Anyways, for the AV switcher, we have the PlayStation 1 in input 1, the PlayStation 2 in input 2, and then we have the Sony DVD VHS combo in input 8, and the Sega Genesis in input 4. Which you may wonder, how do you get the audio from the Sega Genesis, considering it's an old console? Well, it's using a 3.5mm headphone jack to component cable, and then I run it behind all that messy cable mess into the AV switcher. Next, as just mentioned, for the coax switcher, there's two switches on it. There's an in cable and an in antenna. For the in cable, it's the Atari 2600, and for the in antenna, it's the Sega Genesis. And if you watched my Instagram stories, the coax switcher is incredibly touchy, so it takes some getting used to and figuring out. But anyways, we have the PSP, which I have the original model, which we could not hook up to any sound system or TV. Then the Nintendo Game Boy, and the PS3, which is through an optical cable on the back of the console, which runs up to the optical port on the back of the receiver. Then for the TV antenna, which I've already shown, if you've been paying attention, it's on the Sony TV, and it is the audio from the antenna works through the TV ARC with anything else hooked up to it. And also the Nintendo Switch, which is on the Sony TV, works through ARC audio as well. Next, all the sources and what devices they are connected to. The PS3 Slim is only connected to the Samsung on the left. And then for the SV2000, the CRT TV, which will be the most used in this setup, the PS1 Fat, the PS2 Fat Original, the Sega Genesis 16-bit, the Sears Telegames Atari 2600, and what my dad calls a carousel player, because it's a carousel, which I will show in a moment, where you could put about 5 different discs in. But it's the Sony DVD VHS. Oh wait, my bad. That's for the Sony. But this is just the regular DVD VHS combo player, which I had for a while. But for the Sony, we have the original Nintendo Switch, the TV antenna, and the carousel player, DVD, CD, video CD player, which works through ARC, or there's also a component connection to the back of the receiver, and you could select CD on the receiver, and it will work through that if you don't want to watch anything on the screen. Lastly, we have a message, which I will be reading. Thank you for taking the time to read through this guide booklet to further understand how to work everything in my mini gaming closet / Beast Production Studio. Please resort back to this guide before changing the sources and ask me for any other information or questions at my social media accounts or email me. So I do hope you have an amazing experience either playing video games or watching movies or shows in this room. And I must urge you to respect my equipment and take care of what you decide to play with in my closet. In addition, no food or water is allowed as you can damage the sound equipment, and no placing anything on the subwoofer, which is situated in the right-hand corner of the floor, as it could easily be damaged. Please access my games with care and make sure your hands are cleaned, and please put anything you take out back where you found it for ease of use and a clean and simple setup. And if needed, again, access this guide whenever needed, and always remember, have a good day. Then there's just some booklet information about what fonts are used and how long it took me to create the booklet, and the Beast Productions logo. Next I have the original simple sketch of how this closet would look. You could take a pause the video if you want to take a look at this. It's pretty simple, but it was a bit different. I didn't plan on putting another TV here, but we did anyway. And here we have the carousel player, which I will show you right now. It could take 5 discs, and let's look at the inside. I currently have some music CDs in here, and you could swap between them by hitting the exchange disc skip button. And it does take DVDs too. Oh, there's an empty slot. It is super unique on how it works. And then I have this player right here. It's a DVD and VHS. Oh, it sounds like it's loading the disc. Don't know if you could hear that. Just trying to load it, but anyway, this is a VHS player. You can kind of look inside. But I love this player. I used it since I was young on an old CRT Magnavox TV. But that's not here. That's not what we're supposed to be talking about. But also, up here, I have Sega Genesis games. The entire trilogy on VHS, Star Wars. I found these recently in the trash, believe it or not. Some more VHS tapes. And then some loose Sega Genesis games as well. And then games I'm currently playing will be on this rack on the top shelf. Alright, now that I have the PS2, the PlayStation 1, and the Sega Genesis all about to be turned on, and including the Sony VHS DVD player, you have to select Audio Select when you're on the TV output, and select Analog. And then everything should boot up, and make sure you're on aux. And then go down here, and you could swap between each. Let's power on the PlayStation 1 as well. There's the PlayStation 1. It's selected. You could probably hear that, and it's booting up. Now switch to PS2, and you could switch automatically. I have Fight Night Round 3 in there. Then switch to number 4. The audio is already coming through. But the issue is that this will have to be through the switcher, because because it's an RF signal, this only takes RF. So grab the TV remote and change it to channel 3. You hear the TV audio, then switch it. It's a bit finicky. Hold on. So we have the audio going through the TV. You can just either mute that or turn the volume all the way down. And then go on the switcher and switch it to number 4. And we have it through the 5.1 surround. Next, let's switch this back to aux. Then let's go to number 8, which is the VHS player. And there's SpongeBob. Let's turn up the volume on the receiver. It works in decibels, as you could see. I wouldn't go above 10 decibels or -15. Here we go. I have Missile Command in the Atari. Now I just need to switch to cable. And let's see. There's always some issues. It has to be with the, there we go. But because it was way too difficult to get this audio to either the AV switcher or somewhere on the back of the receiver, we just have to play the Atari 2600, listening to the audio through the TV speakers. So turn this back up now. And hit start. And there we go. That's Missile Command. There is some RF interference, but overall, if you mess with this a little while, you can get it just perfect. But there we go. Next on to the Samsung TV and Sony. Then that will be it. Next, we have the PlayStation 3, which is the only console that will be on this Samsung flat screen. So to get the audio, grab the Pioneer remote now that I've shown you a look at the guide. Make sure you're on TV still, and change the audio to optical. And you should be able to get the audio now from the PS3. And you don't have to worry about the audio coming through the TV, because I set it up in a certain way where the audio is only through optical, and if you want it back through the TV, you just have to change it through HDMI, which will go to the TV. Let's turn her on. I love this console. I grew up on it. There we go. That's a good enough demonstration. This is also good for watching Blu-ray movies. And because the chair is right here, you could just sit here and relax. But yeah, let's do the Sony now. So this is a unique remote for a early smart TV, and here we go. It's on HDMI 4. We just have to see if the audio goes through. Let me grab one of the Joy-Cons. No, because I have to change that to ARC. And that is where it becomes a bit tricky, because even though ARC is on, it doesn't pop up. So you need to grab the TV remote and go to Input and go to HDMI 1, which is the Pioneer receiver's built-in menu system. And hit the home button. Once you have it hooked up, I would go down to hardware, HDMI, simply turn off audio return channel and turn it back on. This is what ARC stands for, audio return channel. Now, look at the receiver. ARC is on. Then you can just exit this and go back to the Nintendo Switch. And here's component as well, which I will show you, which is the carousel player. Let's go back. And if you hear that, the audio is through the speakers now, because it shows PCM, linear PCM. That means 2.0, 2 channels, 0 subwoofers. Even though we do have a subwoofer, and it still works with the Nintendo Switch just fine, because it's the older ARC instead of eARC. eARC, I believe, would be 5.1 and more crisper sound, but this TV only has ARC on the back, so that's what we have to go with. Anyways, after some technical difficulties with the video through the component cable not working, I got it working back, and here's a brief sample of a song by Creed using the player, and it is hooked up through ARC as well. And you see, switching audio to external speakers once I turn it on. Makes a click, then it is ready. Alright, so that is at negative 18 decibels. I don't know what devices you guys are watching this on, but that was extremely loud. But this is done for the sample video, and I almost forgot one thing, is showing the TV antenna, built-in tuner. The sound should be, it is going through that, okay. Hold on. There we go, we have the sound going through here. MeTV Tunes. It's in Dolby Digital.
How did you untie yourself and get here so fast?
You can also take a look at the guide once it loads. It's a bit buggy. I'm still figuring out how to set up the guide correctly on this TV. Well, for some reason, I might need to auto-program it again, but the guide is not showing any of the channels. You will see a demonstration of this working in the timeline process in just a few moments. Anyways, I do hope you enjoy the showcase of my retro gaming closet / Breeze Production Studio. But I hope you also enjoy the next 38 minutes of the timeline process if you didn't originally see it on my Instagram story. So now, to that, and always remember, have a good day. Enjoy. We got the receiver working.
For now. Here's it.
Hey guys, it's the Beast here. I'm sick today, so I thought, what else could I do? I could work on my gaming closet, and I'm hooking up the switcher right now. I have the PS1 and the PS2 hooked up. Here's the PS1 on input 1. Here's input 2. Works pretty nicely. So, good news. I got the coaxial switch here to switch between the Sega Genesis, which currently has Sonic the Hedgehog in it, as you can see, and down there the Atari that has Defender. If I simply switch it over, boom, Defender, Atari 2600, Sega Genesis. All because of this. This piece right here is a RF adapter, which will connect to the console. But yeah, I just gotta make it all organized, and it works. Then we gotta work on the sound. Look at that. And it all runs on channel 3. Switch it. Boom. It's a little finicky, but there we go. So to my knowledge, this switcher is very finicky. So right now, the Atari's working just fine. There's some like distortion with the signal, but it's still playable and the sound's fine. If I switch over to the Genesis, sometimes it doesn't come in clear. You kind of have to... Oh, there's a little click. There we go. And boom. This one comes in much clearer. I have power on all 3 TVs. My Samsung 1080p screen, this Sony Smart TV, and my CRT, the SV2000. Everything has power. All I gotta do is set up those 2 players and the receiver to everything, and that will be it. And a new light. We're gonna get a socket fan light as well. So I have the PS3 set up through optical, but I just found a YouTube video to simultaneously output between all of the different audio outputs. So I turn that on. You go to audio output. I have it through optical, so let's select optical. Select an output format supported by the TV or amplifier. 2 channels, okay. I guess let's just leave it. Press the X, okay. So now it should work. Let's see. So let's go over to, let's just go here and mute the TV audio. No way! I got it to work. The TV audio is muted. I got it going through optical to the receiver. And I don't know if you can hear that. We got it working. I just realized that now that I have it set up through optical, the only way to hear it through the TV would go here and turn on HDMI, go through that startup process. Then you would just turn off multi-output, which is off already. That's weird. I had that on. Oh, it downscales it to 2 channels. So I'm going to turn that back off, go on here, select digital output. We have 5.1, so I'm going to select digital Dolby. And there it is. Now everything should be set up properly. I turned back on the click noises. I'm going to turn that back off. Go over here. So the TV audio is on right now, but nothing's coming through. It only comes through here now, unless I revert the settings. Or if I unplug the optical, I would hear it through the TV, but now I only hear it through the speakers. So now everything's through both of them. I have multi-output on, but it downscales it to 2 channels. So I'm just going to keep it off so we could get the 5.1 surround sound for the PS3 and revert it back whenever I choose to. So I just figured it out. I left these cables in here. This goes into the switcher. I unplugged the two audio cables and grabbed these are two new ones. And this one, the yellow one, goes into here. But I have a totally new cable. That one's also just going to be dangling there. And I ran that up to TV. And now it flipping works on the switcher. So let me restart this. Listen. It's not through the TV. The volume on the TV is all the way down. You can hear it through the receiver. So if I go on the PS1 here, turn it on, or PS1, here we go. Oh, it works. So anything hooked up to the switcher should now have the right audio. Now all I need to figure out is the Sega Genesis and the Atari 2600. That's all the audio I need to figure out. But besides that, everything works. All we need is to get the VHS combo working, and the VHS combo and the Atari and the Sega Genesis, and we're done with audio. I can't believe I figured it out. I just realized to set up the Atari to the receiver, there's no external audio ports on this because of its age. But the Sega Genesis does have S-Video, which could be the only thing hooked up to, where is it? I guess there is no S-Video on here. It's gonna be, we could probably run them through your carousel player here because there's two S-Videos, but my knowledge, the Atari, we cannot hook it up with audio, but the Genesis, we can. So the only thing we won't have hooked up is the Atari, and then all we need now, the Genesis and the VHS player. So for this VHS DVD combo by Sony, I plug in the white and red audio ports into number 3 here, the CBL/SAT, which then they will go into here, which will just be the audio out, and then I run a video cable to the switcher down there, which I can also include audio, but it's not needed if I just want to hear it through the receiver. So I figured it out for the Sony VHS DVD combo. I found these Radio Shack audio cables that also connected to what seems to be an S-Video, but I just left that dangling. And this video cable is all the way from the output that goes into the switcher, because that one was just dangling there. It was for that output back there. So I kind of just stretched it a bit more and put it right there so we don't have to buy any more cables. And now we have video and audio through the receiver. Well, let's see. Here we go. Unpause this. Audio's through. It would be better with a new cable,
Don't tell Monkey.
but it works.
Go ahead, Panda. Show us what you can do.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I
And
just ate.
let's test the volume
still
through the TV as well.
Kung Fu might not be as good as later on.
And then mute
DreamWorks Kung Fu Panda.
this. There's no audio coming through the TV. So the best bet would be simply just oh, I think you have to also have an in back there, but this guy is only through the receiver. which is nice. Well, that's it. All we need is to get that RF modulator. One more thing I just realized, if you want anything that's hooked up to the switcher, if you want the audio to come through the TV, you have to hook up the audio cables through here. As you can see, these would usually run to right here, input 1, right next to the video. But here, let me set this up real quick and show you the difference. Okay, as you can hear right now, the PS2 audio is coming through the receiver speakers. And if I want it through the TV, I have to unplug the ones on here. Then you can tell there's no more audio through the receiver for the PS2. Then if you plug it into the TV ports, you will get it through the TV speakers. So you have to do that with every source if you want it to come through the TV, which is good to know. I also figured out if that cable that was plugged into the TV, you leave the video in there, the audio that was on this 3-port cable, you plug it back into the output, then it will come through the TV. Then, if you unplug these and plug back in the other ones, which are plugged into the receiver, the audio will go through the receiver and nothing through here. So let me turn on the receiver. And there, you guys can hear the audio's through there. So if you're messing with the cables, you could get it back through the TV, but everything is set up to only go through the receiver at the moment. Better way to rephrase things is, you see the output, this output with these two, the red and white, are plugged into the receiver, and these two, which would be right here, you could plug them into the TV, so everything from the switcher would go through the TV. So, for example, unplug these two, you unplug these two, plug these two back in, then plug these guys into here, and then the audio from everything coming through here would go through the TV, and then the other way around. We have this Sony CD, DVD, and video CD. The audio is coming through here. Turn this all the way down. Then unmute the receiver. There we go. We got some Creed playing. I gotta rotate these back. Man, all we gotta do is get a RF modulator for this so we could hook up the sound for the Atari and the Sega Genesis. Besides that, we're almost done. Track 2. She went. Woo! Wow. And I do have a lot of remotes too that I will be using on all of this. It's a little complicated, but it will work. This is for the Sony TV. That's for the Sony TV. This is for the player right here. This is for the receiver. This one right here is for my SV2000. This one's a Blu-ray remote for the PS3, which is run through my Samsung. And this is the VHS player, which is also run through here, through the AV switcher, which is right there in the middle. And then we also have another remote. Well, this is great. We got to work on the cable mess though. Alright, rotating them back. Left. loud.
Well, I just heard the news today. It seems my life is gonna change.
I even have a diecast right here. TV antenna for this.
Begin to pray.
These are the back speakers, surround,
Tears of joy
center channel, 2 front,
stream down my face.
subwoofer, everything.
Welcome to this place. I'll show you everything with arms wide open. With arms wide open.
PS2, PS1, PS3's through here. Let me try that out. We got the PS3, PS1, PS2, go to input 8, and we got the Sony VHS player as well. Let's go back to 2. Boom. Sick. This guy and that is run through here, through that switcher, which I gotta work on the sound. Too much is running right now. I also have my Nintendo Switch, which goes through this TV as well. So that's what I'm using that one for. I hope to also get a pull-out drawer. Maybe not. That would be for my laptop. Or I could just have it sitting somewhere in here, connected to one of the TVs. But the sound in here is phenomenal now that we got a 5.1 surround sound. Diecast garage. This also has a light, but I don't have it powered right now. We gotta clean this whole place up. 2 final steps. New lighting. And to get the 2 consoles on the setup. I'm trying to find a good one. I set it up the Nintendo Switch, which is right there on the dock, which the HDMI for the Switch would just be hooked up to the TV. Then this TV supports ARC audio, which then I plugged it into the ARC port on the back of the receiver. And then I fiddled around with this for a little while until I realized you had to hit audio select and select ARC, and now it's all through here. So you can't... you could turn the TV back to regular audio through here if you go through the TV settings, but it works. Listen. It works. I just received the RF modulator so I could hook up the Sega Genesis and the Atari 2600, the audio from both of those consoles, to my 5.1 surround sound speakers in here. I have one there, center channel, and the two front ones. I'm going to go set it up, and I'll report back to you guys when it's done. Hey, as you see from the previous stories, my audio for the Sega Genesis and the Atari 2600 don't seem to work through the RF modulator, and according to Best Buy support, they told me I need a RF demodulator to separate the audio signal, and for the Genesis I need a 3.5mm to RCA to connect it. But the problem is I have one more port left, so I need a switcher to run those two things, the demodulator from the Atari and the 3.5 to RCA, to a switcher. Then that switcher goes up to the final input on the receiver, and boom, both of those signals, the audio signals from the Atari and Genesis, should get to the receiver. But I have to look into it and hopefully finish up the setup soon. But yep, that's it. And one more thing is, I've looked through the internet trying to figure it out, and I thought that I would be able to use the RF modulator, but I suppose not. And it's very hard to find the information I'm trying to look for my specific audio setup. But thanks to Best Buy support, this may just work out. I guess we'll see in the coming weeks. Hey guys, it's the Beast here. I'm going to be speaking with Best Buy support soon on how I could hook this up to this. I already know I need a demodulator, but I need to hook that up from the Atari to a audio switcher. So I need to figure that out, because I want both of these consoles going into one of my last ports on there if you watch the previous stories. But right now, I'm just rocking out 5.1 surround sound in here. Hey Sarah.
No, don't give me that video, no!
This thing vibrates our tiny house. It's crazy. Okay, so I was just puzzled trying to set up the Nintendo Switch to ARC again. The video I recorded previously, I already had it hooked up through ARC from the Sony to the receiver, but you have to go to, this is just a reference video, and today is May 22nd. So you have to go hit the home button and make sure on the input, you're on the input HDMI 1. Then go to hardware, HDMI, audio return channel. And if I look at this, oh, that's, you have to go, then you use audio select. And there's ARC. And it will show the PCM, because that is what is supported on the Nintendo Switch. But if I hit info, it's PCM 2.0, and if I change the input to the Nintendo Switch, which is HDMI 4, you have to also go to TV settings, change the TV sound to stereo, and for some reason it won't work through surround, even though I have a 5.1 setup in here. Probably because we need a actual subwoofer hooked up a different way to this than the way we have this one hooked up. That's probably why. Alright, so I'm working on my setup again. I got a 3.5mm to RCA audio cables, which will run up to my stereo receiver, and hopefully I will receive stereo audio from the Sega Genesis And bad news about the Atari, it's super complicated and will require multiple different switchers and cables. It's too much of a hassle to even get stereo sound out of this, so we just get the sound through the TV speakers instead. So let's test this out and plug it in. So having it ran up to the CBL/SAT, which is my third input here, it doesn't seem to work. But I tried twice and it doesn't seem to work. But when I plugged it in there, it works. So here we go. Alright, so on my AV switcher, I plugged it into the audio ports for number 4. So set this guy back down. Go to 4. And boom! The audio works. But the issue is that it's also through the TV, so you would just have to turn down that volume all the way. Stereo's muted, see? Turn back up the... Wait for it. It's through the TV. But that's the only downside. I got it working though. It freaking works. Through the headphone jack. Listening to Sonic. I can't believe it works. You would just have to go on input 4 on here and it will work for the audio. But besides that, that's great. Still a big cable mess under there, but besides that, I won't be able to get the Atari set up under there. So besides getting the Atari, or the Genesis audio hooked up, we can't get the Atari as said in the previous story, because it's way too complicated for this setup. But besides that, we just have to get this light installed after we get a socket and get rid of this one, which likes to turn off if you stay too still in here for too long. Then we gotta build a 3-layer shelf for these 2 players and the receiver. And besides that, the setup would be done, and I will be working on a YouTube video after I have the last steps finished. But yep, I can't believe it. It was that simple to get the Sega Genesis audio working. But like always remember, have a good day. Hey guys, we're using the surround sound speakers before in the back, and now we changed those small ones to these Kilch. It's hard for me to pronounce that, but these are way bigger and they sound way nicer. We changed them, and they also look a bit nicer in here. So here's a sound test.
When the lights go down in the city and the sun shines on the bay, I wanna be there.
So now that we got these new speakers in here and not these smaller surrounds, all we got to do is add this light and still make this shelf, and there's a lot to come for Beast Productions. I hope you guys stay tuned, and like always remember, have a good day. And I have an antique phone, a rotary phone, that will be used for my short film as a prop. But that's it for now. And again, like always remember, have a good day. Hey guys, it's the Beast here. I'm going to be posting pictures of the light that I just got installed. It's the socket fan light like I've been talking about. It's got 3 different lighting modes, which is nice. And nicer, it's got fan. Keep it nice and cool in here because I tend to get really sweaty in this small space. Different fan speeds.
Hey guys, it's the Beast.
There's Sarah in the background. And different lighting modes. Besides that, it is very nice. And we're about to build the shelf, and I will post that as well. And like always remember, have a good day.
Say always twice every time.
So I'm working on organization. I got the power strip moved here, so it's much neater now. And we got the shelf made. We just have to put it up there, and the receiver will be raised up a bit higher. Right now I was just testing if everything that I had hooked up worked fine after I rearranged it all back there instead of under there, and it does work. And always remember, have a good day. I'll make a video when this is finished, and I will make a YouTube video explaining everything in depth. Alright, I wanted to say that I also had a TV antenna that's been just resting here, and I have to wrap it around here to organize it. But I had it on here, and because we don't have any way to get the audio from the antenna signal to the receiver, I simply just thought about plugging it into the Sony, as anything that's plugged into this through the ARC connection, it will go to the receiver and work. It's already working now. I did a auto program for channels and it found 79, so let's enter that, and there we go. It's on channel 2 right now, and it even looks better on this display. This one's a bit smaller, but here, let's check out another channel real quick. Well, I have to figure out how this guide works on this TV, because this one, it recognizes it right away with all the channels and the listings if you have this time set right, but it's not working. It said something, it needs time to gather all the data, but it is working, and it has over 79 channels, which is nice. This is a view channel. There's channel 7, America's, yep. Alright, that's it for now, which is nice that I have this set up. And on the receiver, you check the info, it's Dolby Digital as well, 5.1, which is nice. Instead of just listening to the antenna on here through the speakers on the TV itself, it sounds nice.
Sure, a cat chasing a laser pointer is a cliche.
But that's it for now, and like always remember, have a good day. Hey guys, it's the Beast here. I got the 3-layer shelf here, or more like a 2-layer shelf, but then you put the receiver on top. Looks nice now. And I also organized some other games on the rack here. And this is a GTA 5 copy, but it does not work. It is defective, but I'm just using it to display here. And up here would be the games I'm currently playing and whatever else that I'm currently watching, as in DVDs or movies, I would put there. But yep, setup is pretty much complete, just slightly more organization to do, and that would be about it. And like always remember, have a good day. One more thing I wanted to mention, I have games here of course, but I also have some under here and some in here for the PlayStation Portable, and the Nintendo Switch games are in here with other equipment, which they are just right there. in their cases with some remotes in a tissue box. That will be DIY for now, but it work. Of course, they're Atari, but I also have a bunch of PlayStation controllers here and here, but I have some more PS4 games in the other room, but that's about it for now, and I can't wait to make the video in the weeks to come with everything else that I'm working on for Beast Productions. And like always remember, have a good day. I can officially say that my mini retro gaming closet / Beast Production studio is officially finished after 3 months of working on it since April of 2025. So I hope you guys stay tuned for the upcoming YouTube video in weeks to come. And always remember, have a good day.